That is, customers' expectations are so much higher than they ever have been before,
Yeah,
right?
it's the digital age. Right?
Yeah, and we are in control. But you mentioned the notion of the word funnel. So let me dig into that in a second. Should we be marketing to our customers in terms of the funnel, or is this more of a journey and understanding where their mindset is as they move through the notion of exploring a solution, evaluating the right vendors, going through the purchase process, and then experiencing that product or service? How do we take that? How do we make that shift? Because if we're thinking about funnel, we're thinking about us, right? I need leads, MQLs, SALs, sales. But if we're thinking about the journey, we're potentially thinking about what the customers need in that and how we create content. Tim?
Yeah, well, that was the point I was talking about earlier. It's so ingrained to think about how we're graded, what our metrics are, what drives our bonus as a marketing person, and where my budget comes from. And all of that is tied to the metrics that are for us, And it's not necessarily tied to the customer's success. And any migration we can do toward that to change the metrics, that's going to take a lot of time. It's because that's a cultural shift, and it's hard to do. But so there are two things. I think there is, most importantly, I think marketing. There's still a lot of room for marketing to be better connected to sales, and really understand what actually is required to move a customer from point A to point B, to get new prospects in the funnel, because the salespeople know that, and they really need to understand each other better, the organizations.
When you say understand each other, what types of conversations are you having between sales and marketing? Like the actual words you're speaking that deliver palpable change, that bring that alignment together. Because people talk about the notion of alignment, but there are instances where there's dysfunction, it's still there, we talk about it, and there's other instances where it's really become close. And I'm wondering, if you were to pull back the kimono, what are you actually saying together when it's working?
What are we saying with the salespeople?
Yeah, like what are the conversations?
Well, like we do a ride day where you go and spend, not everybody does this, but what's worked best for me is when I've gone and spent either a day or a half day riding with a salesperson.
I love it.
And sitting in those meetings. And just, I promise just to be quiet and to sit there and not say anything. And I understand this is,
Does that actually happen? Do you,
Yes.
you say nothing?
I do.
Come on, Tim.
I do.
Okay.
I do say nothing.
You're better than me. I can't say. I'm like, woo!
So you get to experience what happens, and you get empathy for the salesperson and what he or she's dealing with, and the challenges of making a convincing argument to try to sell somebody on making $1 million decision. That's actually I'm never allowed to sit in those meetings. It's the lower, it's a $100,000 decision. They'll let me sit.
They let you sit in on those.
But that's what I think. Then you hear their words
Sure.
and you understand, and then you can talk to them afterwards, the salesperson, and find out, okay, what's the next meeting going to be about, and what information, what could we produce that would be helpful for you to answer these questions that the customer
I love it. Almost physical empathy. You actually see it go down, and then you have a real conversation. Wendy, what are you talking about?
So, when we work together with sales and marketing, we always want to identify how can we add value, or how can the salesperson communicate value at each stage of where the buying process is based on where the customer. One of the things we do is we take our message to the street, right? And so before we broadly put out a new message or overview, what we do is we go and we test it. And the way we test it is we give it in the hands of the salespeople, and we go along and we watch them try to go through it and try to pitch and see how.
So marketing is actually sitting in on that conversation as they're pitching the new message, as a pilot, if you will.
Right, a piloting.
Beautiful.
But I'm a firm believer we can sit in our area of marketing and we can come up with the best collateral or the PowerPoint, but if we don't go out there and test it and hit the street, we don't know if it works or not.